Hey guys, Ryan Dement from Chasing Financial Freedom podcast. Hope you guys are having a great day today. On the podcast, we have Leah Remillet, and she is helping time starved entrepreneurs and professionals do less, but better. Guys, this is going to be a great conversation because we all value time, and I think we could all do better. So, Leah, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to jump into this today.
You're more than welcome. So, before we get into what you're doing, can you tell the listeners a little bit about who you are?
Absolutely. So I think of myself as a systems strategist and an expert when it comes to productivity. And that is not because I've always done it right. It's actually because I did it so wrong that I just ultimately became obsessed with figuring out how to do business better. I've been running my company for 16 years. The first few years were rocky because I was hustling, and then I just burnt out really bad, ended up in an ambulance, burned out. So that was my moment where I said, okay, I'm either figuring this out or I'm walking away. And I didn't want to walk away. I wanted to believe that there was a way to feel fulfilled in all your different areas and to truly feel like you're thriving, which in my mind, thriving is all the areas of your life feel good. They may not be perfect, but they feel good, and so that's what I set out to do. I want to be a great mom. I want to be a great wife. I want to be a great boss, a great business owner. I even want to be able to have time to do other things that I enjoy doing, going out with girlfriends, taking a nap every once in a while, reading books, all those things. So that was the goal.
Okay, we gotta start and go all the way to the back and go right from the beginning. You literally were taken out in an ambulance?
I was. Essentially, I and I think a lot of people can relate to this feeling that there's never enough hours in the day, right? There's
Yep.
so much that we need to do and that we are needed in so many different capacities. And I just kept trying to give more and it was never enough. And I had little ones at the time and I they need you all day, all the time. Plus, I'm trying to work with all of my employees and make sure everybody's doing what they need to do and be on calls and try to fit things in during nap time. And I ended up one day being like, I put the kids to bed and I went to work and it was glorious. Nobody bugs you when it's 2 in the morning. Like I got so much done. And I started this habit of putting the kids to bed at 7:38, going into my office and working and working. And it became where I would go till about 5 a.m. Sometimes literally my head would hit the keyboard because I would just fall asleep. I'd drag myself to bed. I'd get back up at 7 a.m. And I figured out I could do this for about 4 days in a row. So about 4 days in a row, I'll stay up till about 4 or 5 in the morning, drag myself back up at 7. And then after 4 days, I had to get at least about 5, 6 hours. And then I would start my cycle again. My husband was in graduate school at the time, and I'm just trying to be our sole provider, take care of our kids, run the house. Literally, it just felt like everything was on my shoulders while he's trying to help, but he's in med school and it's just not available. I kept doing this and doing this. And the mom guilt that I felt was so heavy and so real. And my way for compensating was that I bought passes for everything. We had the zoo, the science center, the forestry center, anything there was an annual pass for, I bought it. And every Wednesday, I would take the kids and we would go to one of these. And it was honestly maybe the 3 hours a week that I felt like a good mom because I didn't work. Everything was left behind. This was like pre smartphones actually being smart. So you couldn't even work from your phone if you wanted to, really. And like outside of like maybe getting a text. And so I was present for those 3 or 4 hours. And it was honestly the only part of the week where I felt like I was this good mom. And we were at the zoo one week. I remember it vividly. We were coming out of the alligator exhibit, which was my oldest, who was only 5 at the time, her favorite. We're starting to walk out of this reptile part, and I start feeling everything closing in. Everything's going dark. My hearing's leaving, my vision's leaving. Like, I'm like, oh, crap. And I'm trying to get myself over to a bench before I collapse. I don't quite make it. And when I wake up, I'm on a stretcher and I'm completely disoriented. I'm trying to figure out what happens. And I lock eyes with my daughter, my oldest, who was 5. and her little eyes were just saucers. She was so scared and they were so huge. And she's holding her little sister's hand, who's 4, and the baby is in the stroller. And I realized in that moment that I had done this. And I don't mean that in a self deprecating, I just mean my choices had landed me here. It turns out you can't give up sleep and continue, right? My body literally went on strike and was like, we're done. We're not doing this anymore. And so I was taken to the hospital. And before I was even discharged, I knew I will solve this or I will walk away, which was terrifying because, like I said, I was our sole provider. Like, who's paying the mortgage? How are we putting food on the table? But there is just no way. There's this quote that I love that says, there is no success that is worth failure in the home. And in that moment, I realized that so profoundly that it was like, okay, this will be solved.
I feel you because I've not always been an entrepreneur all my life. I spent most of my career in corporate America. I ran call centers, collection agencies, anything with a financial instrument, I ran it. I had at any point between 1,000 and 4,000 people reporting to me. I had days like that where 7 days a week I'm going and just it doesn't work. And then once you find that you're just chasing the next promotion or whatever the case is, everything else is lost. And I'm not saying that's you. That was me. It was me personally because I was chasing the next promotion. I was not happy. But the one thing, I'm now 50. I've been an entrepreneur for almost 10 years now. Probably in my late 30s, early 40s, I finally realized time was my most valuable asset, not money. And how would I get more time back into my schedule? And that's been ever since I left corporate America. My deal is to find better, effective ways to use my time so I can be productive, but also be happy and be able to enjoy life.
Yes, amen. And that's the thing, right? I had that same moment. I think we all figure out what we're chasing, right? For some, it's the promotion. For others, it's the next big goal, the next big income boost, the next big whatever it might be, entrepreneurial or in the corporate world. Either way, we can get sucked into this. Okay, I've hit this. Now I got to try to hit the next one.
Yep.
And not even taking the time to enjoy what we've already accomplished or allow that to feel good. And, what you said about money and time, I came to the same realization. I realized I can always make more money. I cannot get that time back. It's gone. There's no way for me to get it back. And when you're looking at with kids, everything is these little chapters with them, right? Oh, before they went to school, now they're in elementary, now they're in junior high. I have 2 in college now. And so I
Wow.
have been through every stage as an entrepreneur now. I've literally had the infant. I started my company with a 4-month-old, a 2-year-old, and a 3-year-old. Terrible timing, but that's when I did it. And then all the way up to 2 in college and my last one in high school. And yeah, I know every stage. And unfortunately, I also know what it feels like to be like, I didn't make the right call. I should have chose them. And so that's what I want to help others do. I just want to help them feel truly in alignment. I think about this idea of let's aim for audacious alignment instead of this constant belief that it's give or take, like you can't have it all. I think there has to be real purpose and real intent, and you got to be willing to really stay firm on your core values, but you can have alignment. You can feel good in all the areas, and it opens up the world to just possibility when you get there.
So let's jump right into it. How do we get there? What would be the 3 nuggets? Let's say you're an entrepreneur who I'm guessing it could be anybody right now because they're time starved.
Yeah.
So what would be 3 nuggets we could start looking at to be able to get this balance back into our lives?
Okay, let's see. I'm gonna start with a couple and then we'll go from there and see what direction you want to take them. The
Okay.
first thing is we are gonna have to get really honest about the stories we tell about time. And I know that seems like a strange place to start, but one of my biggest reality checks was I was telling some stories about time that were setting me up for failure. Time and I were not friends, never was on my side, was never helping me. There was never enough of it. I felt really bitter with time, right? I remember just feeling almost like angry, like, how the crap do they get that much done? Like, here's me. I don't even sleep and I'm still feeling behind, right? I really worked on the stories I was saying about time. I started talking about time like we were friends instead of enemies. Do you say things like, "Oh, I'm always running late. I'm always behind. Oh, next month maybe I'll get caught up." Just look for those stories that maybe you're telling yourself and try to shift them dramatically. The second thing is we're going to have to start paying attention about where we actually spend our time. So,
Mhm.
just like if we go spend our money anywhere, we're not paying attention, we just swiping that card everywhere, all of a sudden you're going to be like, oh crap, I'm negative. What happened? Like, we have to pay attention to where our money goes. And what's so fascinating is that time is the most precious commodity we have. And yet, so often we are not careful with where it goes and how we spend it. We scroll on our phones way longer than we meant to. We say yes to the thing that we really shouldn't be saying yes to. We take on one more project that isn't even in alignment with our goals and what we're trying to do. We get sucked into some email that shows up that says, by the way, did you know that in order to be successful, you have to do this? And all of a sudden, we're down some rabbit hole buying something that we don't actually need because we didn't pause to ask ourselves, is this what I want? So, getting really clear about where we're spending our time and how long things are taking. And then that's going to take me into the third thing. Let's just start with that person who's like, how am I supposed to implement anything else? I don't even have time to do everything I need to do. To that person, I'm going to say, track your hours. It's going to suck. You're going to hate it. There's nothing fun about it. I'm not even going to try to sugarcoat that. But when you track them, you can get very real about what's taking so much time. Once you know that, then you know what adjustments to make. Now, if you have more money than you have time, then you're going to pay to get someone to help you a little bit so that you can take it
Correct.
off your plate. If you have more time than you have money, then you're going to work to put a few systems in your place. But what I hope is that as soon as we track, one of the things I was able to do immediately was go, why am I spending so much time to do this? It's not even producing very good results.
Mhm.
Scratch, gone. So as I started to do that and got really intentional about that 80/20, like what is actually bringing in the income, bringing in the results, getting me the most new prospects, whatever that metric is. And I got very intentional with that. And I got really good at saying, yep, nope, not going to be doing the other things.
I love that. I know where I struggled with in that space is I was trying to do everything in the business and working in it instead of on it. And you're
Yes.
right. When you first start up in a you have a startup business entrepreneur, you have more time than you have money. So you've got to figure out a way to get organized. And one of the things that I fought for the longest time was time blocking. And it now has become a really great friend is because the first 2 to 4 hours of every single day is blocked. And I typically at the end of each day, I'm looking at it. I've got a pad of paper that I write down the things that I need to accomplish. And then at the end of the night, once I'm relaxed, so forth, I rank them 1 to 5, 1 to 7,
Yes.
whatever. And then I go in every morning for those 2 to 4 hours because all these things that I have on this list are revenue generating tasks. I try not to do anything that doesn't generate us revenue. And if I am, I'm helping out and I try to stay away from it. But until I got organized in my head and be able to put it on a piece of paper, I was swimming in the time factory, as I call it, because it was just an endless loop that just kept on going and going. And I just kept on going, sinking straight down.
Oh, let's think about it. How do probably most people start their workday? They come in, they sit down, they open their inbox, and they
Yes.
start checking to see what's there. Now, here's the problem. Our inboxes, that is someone else's to-do list for you. It's not your goals, it's not your plan for your day, it's how someone else hopes that you'll spend their day with them so that they can put you in the direction that they want. So, one of the things that I think is so important is do not start with your DMs or your inbox or any form of Slack, whatever. Don't start with that. I do the exact same thing. I make my to do list. I never have more than 5 things on a day because I just know that's not even realistic. And I want to feel that that dopamine and the endorphins of I did it all. I checked it all off.
Check the
So
box, check the
yes,
box.
yeah. So
Yes.
I don't want this huge list that I can't ever get that. Look at me, I'm doing good. So I have at the most 5 things and I sit down and my goal is there's the number 1, it starts. This is the number 1 needle mover that will move my business, my big goal that will move things forward. So I start there and I'm not doing anything else until I have made progress on that. And then I like to do with my inbox, I have 2 times a day where I check it. It's a time block. It's 30 minutes each time. I can come in. The first time I come into my inbox is honestly like a quick cleanup and looking for urgent. I take big ones where I'm like, don't need to read them, delete. And then I get down to the ones that are important and then check over those. If I can handle them in a couple minutes, boom, it's done. That 2-minute rule. If I can't, it goes back to unread. And when the timer goes off, I'm like, okay, email is closed down. And I know I'm going to come back to it at the end of the day. Now, every once in a while, I'd be like, oh man, I got to get back to inbox 0. I'm going to carve out a little more time and just handle this. But for the most part, it's like I'm in, I'm out, and now I'm moving back on to my goals. And people still feel completely taken care of because I'm still getting back to 90% of people the same day or the next day. And yet it doesn't take up everything. It doesn't distract me because how many times are we finally sitting down to work on the project we've been saying we need to do all day? It's the end of the day. They're finally doing it. And then the inbox chime happens. And then they're like, down some rabbit hole and they don't get to it. And so this idea of being like relentlessly in the pursuit of our goals and what we've said we're going to accomplish, and then just prioritizing those things above everything else, it really does make the difference.
The other thing that gets to me is text messages. So I actually have there's certain parts of the day, like in the morning, I wake up, I take Moose out for a walk, I journal, whether people do it or not. I read some scripture. I just want to set my mindset. And then I sit down. And one of the things that I do during that time is my phone's on do not disturb. I'm not going to be bothered. But during the day, when I'm working on tasks that are important to me, I make sure that I go do not disturb also. The
Yeah.
thing that I struggled with for the longest time is I'm pointing to my laptop over here, and then I've also got an iMac, is I would leave them up there and then I'd hear the ding there. And I'm like, that ain't gonna work. Cause then I'm gonna immediately look over there and say, oh, you want me to do that? And then I'm gonna have to stop everything I'm doing to do that. And there's a reason why you don't get anything done on a daily basis. And we all struggle with that. And I still struggle with it, but with some structure and, like you said, a system, it actually can work, but you have to be willing to overcome the anxiety that comes with trying to respond to somebody within 2 seconds.
Yes. I remember feeling it so deeply. I remember thinking, uh, in a little bit of an arrogant way that like the whole business would crumble if I was not there 24/7. And
Yes.
it was very eye-opening when I went into the emergency room, I get home. So a part of that is that I had a seizure while I was like being taken to the hospital. After that seizure, I had a stutter and it took a while to get that to correct itself. And I was just really struggling. So, like, my husband was like, absolutely not. You are not stepping into that office. And my mind's all gonna fall apart, right? I've just told this story that, like, there's no way it can exist without me. And guess what? It all did. And that is one of the best things that happened to me because that little dose of humility of, oh, guess what? It's all okay. It opened my eyes to wait, how many more things do I have my hands in that don't actually need to be in there? Like I
Yeah.
can let go. And one of the things that I think is a very real feeling is we hear these things, you got to be to them within the person who gets there fastest gets the client. You got to respond as quick as possible. You don't want to miss the opportunities. It's this grind, hustle. And it ends up bleeding into everything where we start getting confused with what's really most important. A lot of parents can relate to their kids starting to feel really frustrated because mom or dad is always looking at their phone, is always got the laptop nearby, is always saying, just a minute. Oh, I'm working. Like, can't you see? And that message is, you were important right up until work showed up, but work is more important. And so building some systems to honestly protect your relationships. This is I think that having the access to our phones that we do is still fairly new, right? Like we the cell phone technology, we all grew up with if someone was trying to call you, they called the home phone, the landline phone. And if you were home, you answered. And if you weren't, and right? Like this whole we're all available 24/7 and people expect us to be available 24/7. When you don't answer, you immediately get a text. Where are you? Why aren't you? We need to really be intentional about this and fix it because it's breaking relationships and it's not worth it. So I had just some simple systems that I put in place. Now I use do not disturb. You can schedule do not disturb. So I have scheduled ones all through the day. But I used to, when the kids were still in elementary school, I had a time right when they got home from school, which was about 2:30 till about 5, where it was like, okay, phone goes in a drawer. And I knew myself. And I would sometimes sneak and check it. And so I actually put a silent alarm, gave it a custom name that would pop up and say, "Are you being fully present? They are what matters most." Literally to get me back in check. I put in little systems like, "Okay, during dinner time, no phones at the table. No
Yes.
phones go into bedrooms. We charge phones out in the kitchen." Like there I just started putting in these little systems and this is silly, but I'll just tell you something I'm really proud of, which is a very weird thing to be proud of, is that everybody who knows me personally knows Leah probably doesn't know where her phone is. She probably left it somewhere. I literally had to go pick it up the other day because I was like, and it took me 3 hours to figure out I didn't even have it. Right? I'm pinging it everywhere. It's the whole reason I feel like I wear an Apple Watch is just so I can ping and figure out where I left my phone last. And I've just built these habits where it is not the most important thing. Whatever's there can probably wait, right? And my family has funny ways to find me because they all know this about me. And so they know if they have to get to me, like Alexa might start yelling at me and being like, "Mom, where are you?" Or my find my phone might all of a sudden be going off because someone's trying to get me to answer. And you know what? It's been okay. I've been known for not knowing where my phone is for a solid decade at this point, and guess what? It's been okay. So, yeah, figuring out each of us has our own little thing that's getting in our way, and when we can test the water slowly at first, like I get where someone who's used to having their phone on them 24/7, answering in real time, the idea of not knowing where their phone is for hours at a time probably makes them wanna, like, crawl out of their skin. But
Mhm.
maybe they start with 30-minute blocks. Dinner time, my phone is not gonna be near me. When the kids first get home from school or when I first get home from work for that first 30 minutes, my phone is on airplane mode. I'll have an alarm that goes off 30 minutes later so that I can turn it back on, but I'm gonna be fully present. So just looking at some things like that, when I'm doing that big project that really matters, my phone is on airplane mode in a drawer for 30 consecutive minutes so that I can really make some progress. Little things like that. It's amazing how I used to look for one big button, right? Like the easy button, you're going to press that and it's going to be like, whoa, there's going to be this one system, this one piece of tech, this one app, this one thing, and it's going to fix it all. I looked for it. I have been looking for it for a long time now. And that's not the answer. It's all of these little needle movers. And you put one little needle mover in and it saves you 10 minutes, and another one and it saves you 15, and another one, and oh my gosh, this one saves me 30, and another one back and that saves me 10. You start stacking those, and we're talking hours. And that's what I teach.
Yes.
I love teaching, hey, this one, and let's stack them in all these different areas in every department of your business, in every area of your home life, right? And we stack enough of those and all of a sudden you're looking around and you're like, oh my gosh, I work 3 days a week now, right? Maybe it starts at instead of 7, 6, instead
Yeah.
of 6, 5, right? You work your way down, but you realize, wow, I really am making a full time income on part time hours. I really am being able to have this balance and feeling like I have extra time. And it's an incredible feeling.
It and people have to be okay with giving up the cell phone and being able to stay focused on the tasks that are at hand, whether it be personal or professional. And it's a struggle. I still struggle with it, but airplane mode's my best friend. Do not disturb is my best friend. I joke. So We're in the real estate space. We do affordable housing development, and we're also a lender. And on the lending side, I could get calls at all times of the hour or
Oh, yeah.
all times of the day. And guess what? After 6 o'clock my time, if you're calling me, you're not getting me. You'll have to wait till the next day. If you couldn't call me between I typically get in the saddle about 6:30 my time. I'm here in Arizona, and I'll work till about 5 or 6, about when I eat. You're not getting me. If you can't get me in 12 hours, you're not getting me after that. That's my time to be able to relax, read, enjoy time with the family, do things. And until you start putting those hard boundaries in for time, you don't realize how much you're giving up of your life to
Yeah.
things that could wait till 24 or 48 hours.
Absolutely. It's not until the kiddo brings home that thing from school that they do on like Mother's Day and Father's Day. And it's, hey,
Oh,
answer those little questions. What's mommy's favorite thing? Her cell phone. It's not until you have these hard moments that you finally realize, wait, something's off, or you're seeing the eye rolling or the resentment, or your spouse is getting frustrated. We don't need to wait that long. We can
yep.
start putting some things in place and protecting ourselves. When I think about productivity, I really think it comes down to 3 Ps, and they're incredibly simple to implement, but incredibly hard to master, right? That we're gonna take a lot of practice. We're not going for perfection, we're going for persistence, but ultimately it comes down to, number 1, you've got to know your priorities. You have to know what matters most and put first things first, right? Like, that most important thing that you need to do that day, that's the first thing you do, not the last thing, because how many times do our days get derailed? Does that
Yeah.
perfect day that we intended, something pops up and shows up and it doesn't get to go that way? But when you started with that very first thing, that number 1, it's okay if it gets derailed because you still made progress. The second thing is being fully present. Like,
Mhm.
fiercely protecting the moment you're in. When I am working, when I am with my kids, I am with my kids. When I am on date night, I am on date night. When I am taking a nap, I am fully enjoying taking a nap, right? Like, I'm fiercely protective of the moment that I am in. And I find little ways and systems to help protect that. So, for example, I just switched offices, so it's actually not back yet on yet. But I have this little thing where it's attached to my door, and it's a light. And so if it's red, everybody knows mom's probably on an interview. Do not walk in. Or I'm in a project, or right? It's something like do not disturb. If it's green, you can come in anytime. And if it's orange, it's okay. You can come in if you need to, but I like am trying to be productive here. I just put
Nice.
in these little things to help. Before that, I used to literally have something that I like just stuck on the door that was mom's hours. So everyone could walk up and see and know, don't disturb at certain times. But just putting in little systems that are going to protect your ability to be present, do not disturb is, an example of one of those. And then the third one is our its purpose. And yes, know your purpose, but I actually mean it in the way of make decisions on purpose. Stop letting decisions happen to you because you got sucked into the scroll, you got stuck into the email vortex, you got sucked into whatever it is. Stop
Yeah.
letting decisions be made for you. You make them on purpose. This is how I'm going to spend my day. This is what I want to accomplish. This is how I've planned it and then blocked it and then set timers to help myself do this, right? Like, we need to be the CEO of our own schedules. And the funny thing is, all these people running businesses, being in really high executive levels in their profession, and yet we're not allowing our own days to be dictated by ourselves. We're not making
Yep.
decisions on purpose for how our day is going to go, how our weeks are going to go, and they stack, right? You have enough days where you can't figure out, I don't really remember what I did. Gosh, I never stopped moving, but I don't even know what I did. You stack enough of those on enough weeks, on enough months, and you look back and you just feel empty. You
Mhm.
can't quite figure out, like, why do I never stop running, but I don't feel fulfilled? I don't feel like I'm making a difference. I'm making that impact. It's because you haven't been making decisions on purpose.
Yeah. I love it. We're coming to that bottom of that hour for 30 minutes. A couple questions. One, are you working or bringing on new clients?
I am. Yes. So within my memberships, my courses, absolutely. We have some really fun things that we're currently working on. One of them is I have decided I am done with social media. I have just decided it's such a time suck. It doesn't have the ROI that so many of us want it to have. And I'm determined to create a revenue stream of 6 figures without social media whatsoever. And so that's something I'm going to be sharing the journey and helping others to do. I also love, obviously, teaching about time management, productivity, putting in systems that save us both in our home and in our businesses. So, yeah, I love doing all those things. I have my podcast, Balancing Busy, and weekly newsletters where I love to share the podcasts I'm on, share my podcasts, and share tips and tricks. So, all those things too.
And then where's the best place for a potential client to reach out to you?
So I'm going to suggest I would love to just give a gift, and I would say start there. I keep talking about systems, and it can be
Okay.
really powerful to get to see systems. You're like, okay, I hear it, I like it, but I'm a visual. If you can just show me what that looks like, that's going to really help. So if anyone listening wants to go to gift.balancingbusy.com, they can get access and actually see some of my systems. And they're on a podcast platform right now listening to yours. So
Okay.
I'm going to suggest also take a minute right now. And as soon as you're done listening to this episode, go find Balancing Busy and follow my podcast and pick one that resonates and take a listen.
Awesome. I will also make sure that link is in the show notes so people can actually reach out to you. Thank you very much for coming on. I love what you're doing. It's sad that we have to get to the bottom of the barrel to make change, but it
Yeah.
does work out in the end. But what you're doing and how you're helping others is great. But there's a couple things in my mind that now I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to sit back down. I actually wrote some things while we were talking. I'm like, I got some work to do. I got more work to do. But thank you very much for coming on and sharing this and really helping entrepreneurs because there is a struggle with time.
Oh, there is, but we can overcome it. And I think the more of us that are talking about it, the more we're going to normalize being able to take breaks, being able to put our phones down, being able to be more intentional and not feel like we're going to miss the train if we slow
Yes.
down for a second.
Yes. Thank you for coming on. I love what you're doing.
Thank you.